Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Isaiah Maynard Show. So today I'm going to be talking about something that I think is very important. Personally, to me, I rank this very high on political issues I personally really care about. So I'm very excited to do something in this video. However, before I get into that, I would just like to say my last video, the one that had to do with my review, my thoughts on the Daily Wire comedy Lady Ballers, did very well. So if anyone from that video is watching now, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. And also, I saw on YouTube that Michael Knowles recently, I think it was today, he did a reaction to several reactions of to Lady Ballers, and unfortunately mine wasn't on there. But hey, my day in the sun may come sooner than you think. So I'm just going to keep doing reaction videos to Daily Wire content in the future, and hopefully they continue to do well, and hopefully I get a feature on the Michael No Show, or maybe with someone else. That'd be pretty awesome if you ask me. All right, so moving on from that, I want to talk about why you should buy a gun. This video is actually inspired from a recent news article I think I was listening to on the Morning Wire, or maybe I read it, but what I read was that New York City Bodega Owners, I'll be full disclosure here, I don't even know what a bodega is, but it's a store, and apparently they stay open very late and have a high crime rate, at least in New York City. But back to the issue at hand, New York City Bodega Owners are arming themselves. The owners of bodegas in New York City are actually coming together and applying for gun licenses. Apparently there's something like 250 plus bodega owners all applying for gun licenses in New York City. So I'm going to talk about why that's good and why you should follow the lead. Okay, y'all, let's get right into it. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, NYC Bodega Owners are forming an alliance and applying for gun licenses. This is great because pre-pandemic, I saw in a Fox Business News article that NYC Bodega Owners went from 10% having gun licenses, 10% of them being armed, to 25% of them. So, I just want to say congratulations, that's good for them. And I also want to point out how, as we all know, NYC, places like New York City, San Francisco, very liberal areas, all are kind of anti-gun. Everyone is hesitant to talk about firearms. Everyone's hesitant to buy a gun for themselves. Everyone is anti-gun until a situation arises where you need one. And it's great how reality in this context and with this issue really hits people hard in the face. No one realizes they need to protect themselves until they need to protect themselves. So say, for example, you're a store owner, or you're working at a gas station, or for example, those people, if they work in a high crime area, know that there's a good chance that someone's going to walk in and try to shoplift or even rob them with a gun or with a weapon. So that's why they typically have a firearm or some way of protecting themselves. What I wish more people realized, and I'll talk about this more here in a second, is that you as an individual also there is a chance of that happening to you, and not enough people realize that. Putting that aside, here's a basic argument as to why you should own a firearm. Okay, so first, evil exists. Whether you like it or not, no matter how sheltered of a childhood you may have lived, you need to come to accept this. There are malevolent actors, there are malevolent people out there. There are evil human beings that wish to do you, maybe not you specifically, but other people harm. There are people who are indifferent to human life. They don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They only care about themselves, and they'll do anything it takes to fulfill their own self-interests. So, because of that sets up the context to shift over to you. So you as a human being. So evil exists, looking toward you now. You as a human being, as a law-abiding citizen, as a regular person, have a right to defend yourself. You absolutely have a right to defend yourself when this situation arises. If someone's attacking you, with no just cause, you have the right to defend yourselves, or at least you ought to. This differs from person to person, of course, but I think most people can agree that if someone's attacking you for no good reason, you absolutely have a right to attack back, to defend yourself in that situation. Now, a gun is probably the most effective way to do that. I mean, aside from getting a tank or something, the most effective way in most people's day-to-day lives is to be armed. If they have a concealed carry license, or if you live in a great state of Texas like me where you don't need one, you can conceal carry and feel reassured that if anyone tries to mess around, they'll quickly find out. So you have a right to protect yourself, and guns are one of the most effective ways to defend yourself. You don't even have to, if you're afraid about using a firearm and harming someone that way, possibly killing them, I understand that, and I pray to the Lord that I never have to do that. However, it is at the very least a good deterrence mechanism. Like if you draw your firearm and someone's charging at you, they're probably going to see that gun and stop on their tracks, because now you're a credible threat. Now you have a means of fighting back, that no matter how big you are, no matter how much stronger they are than you, no matter how much faster they are than you, it doesn't matter. Because if you pull that trigger, they're not faster than a bullet, they're not stronger than a bullet, and if you pull it enough and if you're accurate enough, then you could stop them very quickly and very effectively. Also, you have a constitutional, and personally I believe a God-given right to own a firearm in order to deter or prevent harm to both you and your family, or just those that you care about. So because of all these principles, because of all these facts I laid out, evil existing, people out there who want to harm you, guns being one of the most effective ways to defend yourself, it being the right to own a firearm being a constitutional and God-given right, those principles all set up the context as to why you should own a firearm. I mean, imagine a situation where you are in a life-threatening situation, where someone is holding a gun up to you, where someone is kidnapping someone you love, where someone is doing something that puts you or someone you love in immediate danger. What are you going to do? What can you do in that situation right then and there to prevent that from happening, to stop it from happening? If you don't have a firearm, if you don't have some effective way of defending yourself, there's not much you can do. So that is essentially why I think you should have a firearm. Okay, so there are some counter arguments to this, and I'll just run through some of them, some common ones I've heard talking to people who disagree with me on this briefly, because I don't want this video to be too long. So some common counter arguments I hear: just call the police. You don't have the government has a mechanism already in place, an institution already in place to help you out in these situations. However, what I'm talking about when you would use a firearm is an immediate danger to you or someone you care about or someone in your vicinity. So just calling the police doesn't really help. There's a common phrase I like to use. I don't know where I heard it, but the common phrase I like to use is when seconds matter, help is only minutes away. I mean, true words could not be spoken in regards to this scenario. If someone's charging at you with a butcher knife, you're going to call the police? By the time they get there, they're just going to be cleaning up your dead body. That's all that they can do. Most of the time, whenever the police are called, they're just there for cleanup. They're just there for paperwork and processing and looking for the person who committed the crime, the criminal, after they've already committed the crime. So if the crime is murder and the victim is you, calling the police doesn't really do anything for you in that situation, now does it? So just remember, you are your first responder, and you are your first responder, and you are responsible for your safety. Another counter argument I hear is, well, there's other methods, non-lethal methods to defend yourself, pepper spray, tasers, stun guns. Well, they're not as effective. They're more likely to fail you, and you're just handicapping yourself at that point. I mean, think about it. Say, for example, you have a taser. You feel safe. Oh, I have a taser. Everyone tries to harm me. I'll just tase them. Well, tasers don't always work, especially if the guy is bigger, like really big, if they're on drugs, which they probably are if they're doing something crazy like this, or if the taser fails, or if it just isn't effective enough. I mean, just because you have a taser doesn't mean, oh, anything that's thrown at me, I'm safe. And same thing goes for guns. Don't get me wrong. You're not 100% safe, especially if you don't know how to use a firearm or defend yourself. But it's more effective. It's more likely to prevent harm to you, and it's more likely to have the intended effect of stopping the threat. So just keep that in mind. Moving on, there's also another counter argument I've heard is it's unlikely you'll need it. This is something that really bothers me. Whenever I talk to people about this issue, and I had a conversation about this recently with someone, and they were saying, well, I don't want to go around life thinking, oh, I could be attacked at any moment. And that sounds very paranoid. It's unlikely you need it. If you look at the statistics, it's more likely that a firearm you own will be used against you than you used to defend yourself. Now, to take those arguments and address them, it may not be very likely, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. So keep that in mind. Second, it may be unlikely for you. It may be unlikely for me or that guy over there, but it's not unlikely for everybody. Some people live in an area that's high crime where they may be in a life-threatening situation every other month. I mean, do those people not matter? Do those people not have the same rights to you? And maybe you say, okay, we'll make exceptions for those people. Well, now we're just creating a whole other protected class, and that has problems in itself. It has structural problems. It has unintended consequences, and I'm sure you want like a process to set that up, and that just makes it harder for those people. And those people who are in those situations probably don't have the resources to get the licenses or permits that you're suggesting. So there's issues with that. Is ultimately what I'm trying to say. The easiest solution is just to allow everyone who's a law-abiding citizen, no criminal record, hasn't done anything to revoke their rights, to just allow every regular, normal citizen, law-abiding citizen, to have the right to a firearm, to own a firearm, to train, to learn, to promote that knowledge, so that we can help the most amount of people and deter crime and prevent harm. Another argument I've heard that's a part of this is that it's more likely the gun will be used against you than defending yourself against someone else. And the reason why, if you look at statistics, I'm sure that pans out. But if you also look at those studies, if you look a little closer, the reason why that is true is because of suicides. And that's not to say that suicide doesn't matter or people who kill themselves don't matter. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, that doesn't pertain to this argument, or that falls apart when you acknowledge the fact that committing suicide isn't only possible through a firearm. If you take away the firearm and that person's truly suicidal, they're going to find other ways. I mean, they're probably on medications. All they have to do is overdose, right? All they have to do is go to the store and drink enough alcohol to overdose. All they have to do is find somewhere really high and jump. I mean, there's a million ways to end your life. We're very fragile, vulnerable creatures. It's not that hard. So whenever people bring up those arguments, I feel like they're just conflating, or they're looking at guns as the issue when the issue is mental health, and the issue is a terrible culture, degradation of family, just so many problems that lead to the increased amounts of suicide we've seen. So instead of I don't want to talk about the issue now. Maybe that'll be a topic for another video. What I just want to address is that when it comes to guns, they're not their issue, okay? How people use them could be an issue. However, it could also be used for good. Guns are just tools. Guns are used however they're used. What guns are made to do is to shoot a metal projectile. That's what they do. You pull the trigger, it shoots a metal projectile. What it's aiming at, what the purpose is, what intent it has, the gun is not responsible for that. The person using it is responsible for that. So we need to keep that in mind. Lastly, I know I was supposed to go through this briefly. This is going to be a long video, unfortunately, which means not many people are going to watch it. But I just want to talk about this. I think this is important for anyone who made it this far. I hear this common line of logic that strict gun laws leads to less guns, and that less guns leads to less gun violence, which if you're 5, I guess makes sense. Or if you're someone who, let me not be so harsh, if you're someone who hasn't thought about this issue very much, or has just listened to excuse me, what other people have said about the issue, they're more liberal, then okay, I get where you're coming from. However, if you just think about it critically for like 10 minutes, I'm sure you'll come to the same conclusion I'm about to lay out. That's just wrong on face value. I mean, think about it. Strict gun laws apply to who? How do laws affect different types of people? Who do laws apply to? Do laws apply to criminals, or do laws apply to law-abiding citizens? Of course they apply to law-abiding citizens. Criminals, by their nature, don't obey the law. They break the law. That's what makes them criminals. That's the definition of a criminal. A criminal is someone who breaks the law. So if someone is promoting strict gun laws, what they're promoting is making people who obey the law more vulnerable to gun violence. Because if you take away guns from law-abiding citizens, what are you left with? Criminals with guns who are going to take advantage of more people because they know law-abiding citizens don't have guns. They have no way to defend themselves. It's oh shoot, that's lightning. It's common sense. I mean, just think about it, and I'm sure you'll come to the same conclusion I will. Ultimately, those are the most common counter arguments I hear. If you have another one, and you think I'm wrong, or if I missed something, I fully encourage you to leave it in the comments below. Please like the video and subscribe. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless.